before we get into today's show, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because the Dolphins take on the Washington Commanders in their second preseason game out of 3, and we will be live for that, just like we were live for the first game against the Atlanta Falcons, which was a ton of fun. 6 p.m. Eastern Time for 7 p.m. game, 5 p.m. Central Time this Saturday, August 17th. Join myself and producer Matt Goldman as we watch the Dolphins take on the Commanders. It'll be tons of fun, and on today's show, we're going to preview that game with 10 players to watch, so stay with us. All right, Washington does come to town here on Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time game in Miami Gardens. The Dolphins are 1-point favorites, which actually surprised me a little bit because we were unsure if the Dolphins starters are going to play and how long they would play if they do, but we do expect to see Jayden Daniels in this game, the second overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, who had one really good drive for Washington against New York in their first preseason game. But today, we're going to look at 10 players that I have my eye on for. We did this for the first preseason game, and it was actually spot on. Some of the players that we had on there, Malik Washington, Jack Driscoll, Jaylen Wright, and to me, I think we all want to see who performs. And on that list as well last week was Teair Tart, because I said he needed to perform well. Ultimately, didn't perform well enough as he got released earlier on in the week. But we're going to have 10 players once again that I am specifically keeping an eye out for this game. We'll start with number 10 here, last that made my list. Deshaun Ham, the defensive lineman, who is part of the reason why the Dolphins, I think, felt comfortable moving on from Teair Tart, because they've gotten a lot of productivity from some of these depth guys at defensive line here. Benito Jones, Deshaun Hand, Jonathan Harris, Isaiah Mack, Brandon Pillai. Like, they've been very good, and with Neville Gallimore also playing pretty well, I'm intrigued to see which defensive lineman continues to have momentum build, because not all of them are going to make the roster, but there's going to be a good chunk of them that do. I want to see how Deshaun Hand performs on Saturday. Channing Tindall, he was on our first list, and he's going to be on our second list as well, because he's going to need to have good performances every single preseason game and almost every single practice if he wants to make this roster, just due to the fact that Duke Riley has been so good, and he is on the outside looking in, as I only project the Dolphins to keep 4 inside linebackers. Now, Tindall did good stuff in that game against Atlanta just 1 week ago. He had 7 tackles and even had a sack, which ended the first half when he shot out of a cannon and fired through a gap on the right side of that offensive line to absolutely swallow up Taylor Heinicke. Like, I did like what I saw from Tindall in that first preseason game, but it's still going to be an uphill battle for him to make this roster, as I do project him being on the outside of the 53-man looking in. It might be only by a couple players. He could be that 55th, 56th guy, but if he wants to potentially jump Duke Riley for that 4th linebacker spot, he is going to have another good preseason game and another good week of practice and another good preseason game to round out the Dolphins' 3 preseason games. But hopefully he's able to do it, because I'm rooting for the man. Let me know, though, your thoughts on Channing Tindall down in the comment section. Will he make the Dolphins' 53-man roster? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Former 3rd-round pick out of Georgia. A lot of hope when the Finns took him. Evidently hasn't worked out. He's continuing to grind. Patrick Paul comes in at number 8 on our list. The 2nd-round pick from 2024 out of Houston had an unbelievably good game against the Atlanta Falcons in their first preseason game, and I am excited to see him play again, because he is the future of this offensive line. As Teron Armstead, I think he's going to retire after this season, and Patrick Paul slots in to be his replacement on that left tackle spot for Tua Tagovailoa in the future. And in Paul's first real game action in a Dolphins uniform, he was very, very good. He was graded out as the 3rd highest player from the Miami Dolphins offense against the Atlanta Falcons, with a 64.7 overall rating, a 73.6 pass block, which really impressed me, because that's the one thing you need to work on: technique, footwork. He has the size, he has the athleticism, but needs to get his technique down, and he did really, really well. Run block was up in the air, but really no one was able to run block well for Miami. They couldn't run the football outside of Jaylen Wright's heroics, so it is what it is. But Patrick Paul, really good game against the Falcons. See if he can carry it over and play really good again against the Washington Commanders. Number 7 on the list, Jody Fortson Jr., the tight end, who I went out on the limb and said that was going to be a roster or going to have a roster spot on 53-man roster cutdown day. Now, that might not be the case anymore because Julian Hill, Durham Smythe, and Jonnu Smith look to be locks, and they've had really strong camps, and none of them played in the first preseason game. But Fortson Jr. is going to need to have some excellent plays here in this game if he wants to try to build momentum for him towards the roster. Unclear of how many tight ends that the Dolphins will end up keeping. Mike McDaniel in 1 year kept only 2. In 1 year, he kept 5. Does he go somewhere in the middle for 3? I doubt it's 4 with some other roster positions needing more guys than they usually do. So to me, I think Jody Fortson Jr. might be on the outside looking in, but needs to have a good game. Rookie Patrick McMorris makes this list. He was not on the list initially, but after having such a strong performance against the Atlanta Falcons, I am just excited to see what the 6th-round rookie out of Cal can bring to the table once again. He was the best player on that Dolphins defense against Atlanta. He led the team in tackles with 8. He had 2 TFLs. As a safety, he was not afraid to get in the box and make a play in the run game, and he even did a couple really nice plays at the goal line. I remember specifically in the first quarter after the Dolphins turned the ball over on that Skylar Thompson pick, Atlanta had it at the 3-yard line on 3rd and goal. They tried to run it, and Patrick McMorris was there alongside a defensive lineman to get the stop at the 2-yard line. Now, ultimately, Atlanta did score, but McMorris made the stop initially. He also had a really solid PBU in that game and has had another strong week of practice leading up to this Washington Commanders bout on Saturday. So to me, I really like where McMorris is at, and I'd like to see him continue to stack these strong performances in preseason and potentially nab a roster spot after not really, in my mind, having one as a 6th-round rookie from Cal. 5 more players to talk about, but we are sponsored by PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app on the market, and I use PrizePicks on a daily basis, and I have so much fun using them because this is the easiest way to play daily fantasy. You got to pick 2 or more player stat projections, pick more or less. You can go to the football with it being back in the preseason. Regular season's coming back soon. College football is almost here. You go to the basketball as it comes up in just a second, or you got baseball as well. Get started with PrizePicks. All you got to do is pick more or less. It's really that easy. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Yeah, you heard that correctly. 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. They also have the best promotions in the game. Taco Tuesdays, Flex Fridays. It does not matter. Make sure you get started with PrizePicks, and they're actually offering you a great deal right now. Code CLNS, when you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS or download the PrizePicks app and input code CLNS, can get you a first deposit match up to $100. Yep. Heard that right. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Number 5, Jaylen Wright. How could we not mention the Tennessee running back? After his electrifying performance against the Atlanta Falcons, it just left a lot of Dolphins fans, including myself, hungry and wanting more. I mean, when you look at what he did against the Atlanta Falcons, 10 carries, 55 yards, 1 touchdown. He had that ridiculous bobble, ended up catching reverse fields for 14 yards, looking like Barry Sanders out there. Jaylen Wright was very, very fun to watch. I don't know what the snap percentage will be with other running backs, with Jeff Wilson being a little bit on the injured list this past week, but hopefully Jaylen Wright gets another handful of carries and snaps and touches, and he's able to showcase why he was a 4th-round pick for the Dolphins in this past draft. Cam Smith makes the list after he was not on it a week ago because, well, he didn't play in last week's game due to injury, but coming off the injured list, and he was never on like a PUP list or anything like that, but finally returned to practice earlier this week. Tuesday's padded practice was the first time we saw Cam Smith for quite a while, and the former 2nd-round pick from South Carolina needs to kind of reaffirm the reason that he was selected as in the 2nd round by Chris Grier, because he did not play last year under Vic Fangio, has battled injuries earlier in this training camp, and in a competitive cornerback room that features Ethan Bonner, Saran Neal, Nick Needham, Kader Kohu, Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller. There's a lot of names I just mentioned for roster spots that can't house them all. I believe Smith will ultimately be on this roster during cutdown day just because it's only 1 year removed since he was a top 55 selection. But it's hard to kind of, I guess, say that he deserves a roster spot. Like, I can't defend him right now. I think he is on this team, but if he's able to have good practices over the next week or two and have a good preseason game tonight against the Commanders and next week against the Buccaneers, then we'll feel right with the world and kind of justify that pick that Chris Grier had a year ago. A couple more players still to talk about on today's show, but who are you most excited to watch tonight? I got to be honest, I'm excited to just watch anyone play football for the Dolphins in a uniform. Well, maybe that's not true because I got to watch Skylar Thompson and Michael White play again, and that was brutal last week. Hopefully it's better this week, but drop a name for me down in the comment section on who you were most excited to watch tonight. Maybe it's another rookie, Malik Washington. The wide receiver from Virginia did a lot of nice things in that first preseason game, but ultimately could not really get open in tough situations with physicality being pushed onto him. He had really nice punt returns and showcased his athleticism and quick movements and lateral movements there, but didn't really do a lot in the passing game. You see it on the bottom of your screen. Had 4 targets in that game, only caught one of them for 5 yards. I'd like to see Malik Washington have a better game this week. Specifically because I think it's more and more likely that Odell Beckham Jr. misses the first game of the season. And I thought Malik Washington could be that third wide receiver for the Fins, but maybe it ultimately ends up being River Craycraft or Braxton Berrios to at least begin the season since they're more experienced and have had more success in the NFL as a whole, but also in this Mike McDaniel offense. The 2 QBs, and I know it's a little cop-out to put both of them on here as your number 2, but after watching the horrific display that was these 2 guys throwing the football against the Atlanta Falcons, it can't get worse, right? At least you would hope it doesn't get worse. And if they want to reaffirm to the fan base and this coaching staff and front office that one of them is deserving to be the backup to Tua Tagovailoa, they're gonna need to have better games than this one. That is for sure. If I see stats and the eye tests like this one again, it really is time to bring in a different quarterback. The number 1 guy that I am excited to watch, football guy, if you will, that I am putting a trenchman up here, Jack Driscoll. I projected him to be the starting right guard before training camp began because I actually thought he was going to beat out Rob Jones and Liam Eichenberg for that spot. But with Isaiah Wynn starting on the PUP list for a long time, with Aaron Brewer's injury that has moved Liam Eichenberg to the starting spot, there is still a chance for Jack Driscoll to be the starting right guard for the Miami Dolphins. Now, it's not under the right circumstances in my book because I would have liked to see him beat out both Eichenberg and Rob Jones, but he now might be starting alongside them for all we know. But Driscoll still has a chance to start that right guard spot, performed really well in the first preseason game. I initially thought he struggled after starting as the center, but when he got moved to right guard later on in the game, he performed a lot better, and I think I would like to see him at right guard. Even if Eichenberg projects to be your starting center with Aaron Brewer on the injured list right now, I would put Eichenberg at center, Driscoll at right guard to kind of see how Jack performs in his second game for the Dolphins in that role because he might have to do it in a bigger stage week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, we will be live later tonight. Like I said, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central Time. Dolphins, Commanders, Washington, Jaden Daniels come into South Beach. Let's see how these 2 teams face off and who can really improve their stock or really put their stock in the gutter for the Miami Dolphins. But make sure you are subscribed to the channel and join us later today because it's going to be a lot of fun.